Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox. I would like to welcome you to the Sunday Book Review. The Sunday Book Review is the series where I discuss books which impact the compliance practitioner, the legal professional, and the business professional. I hope you will enjoy this episode. The Sunday Book Review is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network. The Sunday Book Review for May 28, 2023, the Memorial Day Books edition. Today we look at books about Memorial Day and patriotism. We, of course, begin with Flags of Our Fathers, about the flag raisers on Iwo Jima. This book was just a stunning book that told the biographies of the men who raised the flag of Mount Suribachi and their story on Iwo Jima. The author, turns out, who had been told all his life that his father was a flag raiser, turns out his father wasn't a flag raiser. So it really adds an interesting twist to how that could have happened. Next up, Citizen Soldiers by Stephen Ambrose. One of the greatest books, certainly, on World War II. Citizen Soldiers really tells the story of the average American who enlisted, was drafted, or served in World War II. He really demonstrates, Ambrose does, that it was the citizens of the United States that defeated Nazi Germany and the Japanese Empire, or at least were part of the group that defeated Nazi Germany. Obviously, there were lots of other combatants as well. But it was the citizen part of Citizen Soldiers that intrigued me so much, and how all citizens, even people like my mother, who was in high school during World War II, engaged in sacrifice for the greater good of America. And that generation really used that experience to really lead the sacrifice going forward. Next up, the book by Tom Brokaw, The Greatest Generation. And this celebrates sort of a continuation of the Ambrose book, but really celebrates what those Americans who served in World War II not simply did to defeat the Axis powers, but what they did after the war. America became the world's greatest country, certainly the most economically powerful, and led the free world. I recognize that the Soviet Union was a part of that world at that time, but the Greatest Generation not only led the war effort, but they led the peace effort. And the prosperity that many Americans had over the next 20 years is a direct result of the experience of those men and women. And of course, the GI Bill sent many people, including my father, to college. He was the first person in his family to graduate from college. So the World War II, really, those men and women were the greatest generation. And our final book is Killer Angels, the great story of the Battle of Gettysburg by Michael Shaara. This was the first of the types of fiction accounts of battles, but it was heavily researched. You really felt like you were in the camps with the men, largely men, some women, but it's one of the best books ever on the Civil War, and it's really about the patriotism of the men fighting that war. I would like to tell you about the latest addition to the Compliance Podcast Network. It's Two Gurus Talk Compliance, where, with my friend and colleague Christy Grant Hart, we take a look at some of the top compliance commentary around. It's a long-form, up to 1 hour podcast, but if you're interested in compliance, if you're interested in Christy Grant Hart and myself talking about compliance, this would be a great podcast for you to check in on. It premiered on March 10th on the Compliance Podcast Network. I know you'll enjoy this latest offering. Additionally, we have Data-Driven Compliance, which is a podcast where I look at the use of data in compliance programs. This is perhaps the most cutting-edge podcast I have going right now. And if you're interested in how data can be used, how to structure a data analytics program, what tools are available out there for you, and how compliance practitioners are using data, this is certainly the podcast for you. So check out Data-Driven Compliance, all on the Compliance Podcast Network. The Sunday Book Review is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.